Hello and welcome to my bi-weekly video log of what I'm learning about in tech at the moment. So I'm making these videos as a way of documenting my process and as kind of my progress and as kind of a forcing function, because by explaining what I'm doing, it forces me to understand it a bit better. So these are not necessarily topics in which I'm claiming expertise, right? I am just experimenting with things that I'm learning about. And today I'm looking at AI integration in workflow, particularly for software professionals, because AI is like the hot thing that all the main dudes of computers are talking about after all. So I've been talking to some of my mates in the tech industry about how they use AI. A lot of people with a lot of interesting thoughts, actually. Some folks feel threatened, some are bullish, some are bearish, some are circumspect, some are excited, and people like me are all of the above. But shouts out to Warren Seymour, bad man. He had a great insight, as he often does. He views AI as a force multiplier. Let's have a look at that. So a force multiplier, it's something that dramatically boosts the effectiveness of a person or group beyond their normal capability. And this has been my experience of AI for a lot of stuff, actually. It's so much easier to ask a chatbot how to do something than it is to Google it, because Google is basically dead at this point, isn't it? It's basically dead internet. It's just ads and trash and AI-generated rot, and it's like, well, the solution to the problem is the problem itself. It's the AI, I guess. But it's helped me in repairing guitars. It's helped me in learning and my day job. But what I'm actually talking about, what specific part of AI? I'm talking about LLMs, a large language model. It's an AI system trained on massive amounts of text to understand and generate human-like language so it can answer questions, write content, and hold conversations. So here's what I mean by levels. First off, this is about me leveling up my usage or integrating it further into my workflows. So like a lot of people, I started off using LLM chatbots, and then I got into AI-assisted coding, and then I started running my own LLMs on my Mac with custom prompts, doing a bit of prompt engineering. And then I started building my own custom chatbots using a vector database. So I'll go through all this stuff. It's gotten to me to the point where I have what I'm calling a RAG-powered assistant, RAG being Retrieval-Augmented Generation, which sounds very, very grandiose, but it's a couple of Python scripts in front of some off-the-shelf. Let's all settle down. So let's have a look at level one, talking to an AI chatbot. I think most engineers are doing this kind of thing. So on screen there, it might be too small on your screen, but it's getting the chatbot of your choice just to write some code. And I find this super useful for disposable tools, which is something that's going to run once. I need to convert this data from this format to that format. Do it for me, give me a script, and then I'll throw it away. I'm done, it's been great for that. It's been awesome. And it really has been a force multiplier there. I've been able to grind through stuff, a good 25 to 30% quicker sometimes than I would. I've just left my own devices hacking out the code myself. Would I put that code in production? Not without careful review. It's very, very different. It's code that I could do standing on my head, but I need my brain for other things. Coding is a small part of a software professional. I'll talk about that later. And this is faster. But whilst it's super, super useful, my super, super smart colleague, Mohammed Ahmed, another bad man, top guy, reminded me recently that writing code, it really is a small part of what we do. And he backed it up with this article from Pedro Tavares, which is really, really good. And I've listed there some of the things that we do, and that's just brain dump top of the head. I mean, if I'd spent more than 5 minutes on it, I'd come up with more and more and more stuff. I haven't weighted those things. Those are just some stuff that came out of my head of what software professionals, I'm currently working DevOps, but I've been a programmer since the 80s, basically, on my father's lap, learning BBC Micro. I've been grinding on this a long time, and the code is a small part of problem solving. And it still needs to be understood as well as written. You don't just write code and then run it without understanding it. So it's great for these throwaway tools. But what it's really powerful for is kind of the sounding board. And I'll talk about that. Because the value is like, okay, ChatGPT or whatever you're using, summarize what AWS Redshift is in a couple of sentences. Summarize what this service does. Summarize what service on Google Cloud is equivalent to ECS. Just give me those answers. That's great. That's so useful. And then there's the massive usefulness of being able to chat to it and go, okay, what service should I use? These are my constraints. This is the software I'm running. This is the environment. This is what the load's going to look like. where should I start? And you can have those conversations in a way you're not going to be judged at all because it's a robot. It's got no feelings, and if you do feel the AI is judging you, just remember you can probably beat it at swingball and it will never own a sweet BMX. So it's really useful for those kind of sort of pairing. It's almost like pairing. I mean, someone I used to work with used to call his chatbot his intern, which I think's not bad because it's something that's read every book in the world but isn't necessarily that bright. So it's just got access and recall to a lot of information, which isn't quite the same thing as being bright. But it's super, super useful for those conversations. And if I'm working on a Nintendo and I describe the problem, I can upload a photo of, and it'd be like, oh yeah, you want to have a look at these chips. I fixed a bass which had a blown chip in the preamp. And I was able to desolder it with my heat gun and get a new one in. I was really pleased. I'd have struggled to do that without the chatbot. So the next level of my use of AI, and remember this is just about me and my learning journey, this might be a benefit to you or not, is AI-assisted coding. I started feeling the limitations of pasting code back and forth to a chatbot, particularly with large repositories. And there are umpteen bazillion tools for this. I'm using OpenAI's Codex here, which is an LLM that's specialized in understanding and generating code. It's still a language model, but it can write programs, explain functions, complete software tasks. So I added it to a few of my personal repos out of curiosity and let it rip. And it found bugs off its own reconnaissance. Like, I'd mislabeled some of my CSS. Classic. It's eyeballed it and it's raised me some PRs and fixed it. And this is just a tiny example. I've used it, on my professional website. I've used it on a few of some of the stuff I've got running on my Kubernetes Raspberry Pi cluster. It's been pretty useful. It's all right. It's not a great programmer and it's quite slow. I think what it's doing is standing up an environment every time there's a request to it, so it's spinning up a container, and I think there's things I could probably do to improve that, but I think I want to start doing it locally now. I think doing it in browser, I can try Codex and I can try Copilot and all these things, but I'd like to have something that's running locally. But the privacy concerns for me are still a little bit because I tried to sign up for one of Google's AI tools that someone had recommended to me, and I read the terms and conditions and I vomited so hard that my shoes caught fire, so I noped out of there. I'd rather pay money than privacy. So I was pretty concerned about some of the privacy implications. And another issue here that's related, you can't just bang any old code in these. Like, I'm not adding this to the people I'm contracting for, their code bases. I mean, some of the code bases for where I'm contracting right now at HMRC are public, but even so, I'm not connecting robots to it right now, and I certainly wouldn't connect it to anything private. But at some point that will probably come for a lot of places, because the force multiplier of being able to just go, I'll just fix this very specific thing. This is how you do. It's just quicker, and it's pretty powerful, and you can review the PR. It's a nice workflow. But as ever, never commit any secrets, yeah? Keep them out of Git. So as I said before, I see the value of the AI chatbot more in terms of the discussion and bouncing ideas, as well as, generating little tools and fixes. And I decided to take that forward, combine with my privacy concerns, and run an LLM locally on my Mac and on my Raspberry Pi cluster that's up above my shoulder. I installed something called Ollama, and this is a tool that allows me to, or anyone to, not just me, to run LLMs locally. And I ran it on my Mac, and I was just blown away. Like, I can run these chatbots on my Mac, and they just work. Yes, really. I mean, there are so many of them, it's unbelievable. And you can install them and run them like they were Docker images. And maybe they are. I haven't really dug into the nuts and bolts of this thing yet. But it really does behave like Docker. I can do Ollama list. And on the bottom of the screen there, you can see some of the LLMs I've got installed, some of those that I've configured myself. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I started out with small LM. Small is like internet speak for small. And it's pretty good. It's teeny weeny. It's only a few gig, and it can answer basic questions really well. I was super impressed by it. And you can download bigger versions of the models which have more parameters. I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of that, but it just takes more grit and grunt to run, but it gives you better results. But a smaller download, you might just want a small one. But the more parameters you have, the slower it can be. So if you want speed, go for the simple one. And I disconnected my internet whilst I was running these, and they worked. They're all local, so I couldn't find anything phoning home. I could run like Charles Proxy or something like that and analyze the traffic. I could have a look on my router logs. I could have a look on my Pi-hole logs, but I don't see any evidence so far that it's phoning home. So that was quite cool, actually, because when you're using these models, if you're not paying for it, you are the product. Just like any other bit of software, you're the product if you're not paying for it. So be careful out there, folks, because you're every time you fill in a captcha, you're training someone's AI basically, and it's the same when you're using chat, whatever. So I mentioned customizing these things. So it is a lot like Docker, isn't it? Prompt engineering via model file. So I'm using a model 5.3, which I think Microsoft have something to do with it behind, but from that's just like Docker syntax. Then I'm setting the system message, and this is a little LLM that I've configured for my kids. So I chose 5.3 because it's probably not got as much contentious stuff in as some. I just want it to be answering questions like, I don't know, how fast can a zebra run? Those are the kind of questions that my kids would be asking it. And I don't want it to start talking about sex and sex and drugs. Basically, I want it to keep it PG, keep it at keep it light, as Alan Partridge might say. So I've described the kids and their ages, and then I thought, wow, I can get this thing to be the kid's hamster, and so I configured it to pretend to be our family hamster, Nibbles, who's the best hamster ever, just perfect hamster. She's only ever bitten my mother-in-law, never bitten anybody else. So sorry, mother-in-law, for that. But you shouldn't have had turkey on your hands, maybe. Anyway, enough about the hamster. So I've given it this system message, and that's a foundational prompt. That's like setting a system prompt in OpenAI. And the system prompt's a form of instruction that influences how the model's going to respond. So it's almost like bootstrapping it, I guess, going like, look, behave like this. These are your constraints. And there's ways to jailbreak these things, no doubt. But it's a type of prompt engineering where I'm crafting the prompt that it uses as the guiding directive for its responses. So here's Nibbles Fluffy Davis, and here is the a snapshot of the AI running. And who are you? And the AI talked about itself, and said it wanted to play with one of my kids, who's the owner of the hamster, and we had a back and forth conversation, and then the kids got involved, and they were like, "Oh, this is brilliant!" And then my youngest really loves Lilo and Stitch, so I made a Stitch bot, but that started ranting in Chinese, so I don't know what I did there. I did something with the prompt, so I turned that one off in terror. But Nibbles has been nothing but the best, as you would expect from something trained on the best hamster there ever was. So can I run this on my Kubernetes cluster? If you watched the video I put out 2 weeks ago, you might recall that I built a Raspberry Pi 5 based Kubernetes cluster, and it works. I mean, I tried running Ollama on it, and you can see me execing into it there. You can see that the pod is running. It's been up for 5 days at this point. It works. Now, the response that it's given there, Tiny Llama, which really is a tiny LLM, is complete gibberish. What's the longest word in English? Cyborg, which has 11 letters and can 18 letters. It does it. So, trust but verify. So that was hilarious. But the responses were coming back immediately, even though Raspberry Pi 5 substantially less powerful than my Mac M3 Max. So then I got it to run small LM because I've been quite impressed by that. And it did like the equivalent of Docker pull. It might even be Docker pull, probably is. Pulled it, and it's come up with some really long word that I'm not going to attempt to say. And I buy that. That sounds reasonable. So I asked it, what is a president? And it came back within 6 seconds and gave a good explanation. 6 seconds. Running on a Raspberry Pi in Kubernetes. Not bad. So I got some plans for this. So putting all this together is that, having the kids having a local LLM that's not on the internet, but they can talk to it, that's quite appealing. So we've got Norbert Chat, which is our family chat room, which I've written, with some AI assistance, and that's a Python, and you use WebSockets and works really nicely. You can upload audio to it. It's sweet. That will talk via internally in Kubernetes to the Ollama service, and then Ollama will talk to the LLM, which I have a customized prompt. I've got some it's just manifests. I haven't done Helm charts for this yet, but I've got some manifests for it, and I'm tinkering. But I would really like it if the family chatbot, the kids, could ask it questions and it could answer, and as a playful little hamster. But giving them facts and information, I think that would be cool. So next level up, can I actually train an AI? Can I actually make my own based on my own data? So what I wanted to do is build a local LLM that's not just prompt engineering, that it's querying, it's trained on my website. My website for gavindavislimited.com, super simple, one HTML page. I want to put a blog on there eventually. I'm keeping it very separate from anything personal, but it's just my professional profile. But yeah, I wanted to keep the whole thing local. I want to train an LLM for it, but from my research, it's like, that would take ages and loads of power, and you're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It would take months. And I was like, oh no, is that not possible? But I did some more research and I learned about vector databases. So a vector database, it's a specialized database that stores and enables high-dimensional numeric vectors representing data like text. And the way it works is by similarity searching based on meaning rather than keywords. So it's somehow semantically aware. So the front end that you would build would take a question and convert it into a vector, an embedding, that's called. And then the vector store would do a similarity search and return the most relevant chunks of knowledge from your stored data. And then that gets passed to the LLM. So it doesn't necessarily behave. Yeah, I've noticed my little bubble is over the bit of the diagram that says front end. Sorry about that. But the chunks are passed to the LLM along with a question inside a prompt, so the LLM can generate the final answer. So it doesn't behave exactly as I've diagrammed there, but I've diagrammed more what the tools I'm using are. We could call this contraption a lot of things. I'm calling it a RAG-powered assistant, Retrieval-Augmented Generation, but private knowledge chatbot, context-aware AI assistant, semantic search agent, LLM-enabled knowledge assistant. Pick your buzzword, basically. But here are the specific tools I used. I generated a Python scripts for all these using just a chatbot and just telling it what I needed. Then I modified them a bit myself, scraped the website, tokenize it, and then bang it into, I don't know how you say it, FAISS, I don't know. That's a vector database. And then Mistral AI is the LLM I chose, and that's running on Ollama. And then I've got a front end with a custom prompt behind my little my little streamer bubble. So the code, this is what builds it. It's a very small bunch of Python. It's using the bunches pattern, a bunch of scripts, still the best software pattern ever, fight me. Sorry, in joke with mates. So I've given it a URL and it goes off, it parses it, it tokenizes it, and then it stores it in the vector database, also known as a vector store. And then here's the code that queries it. It might be too small to read, but I've got a template, which is my bit of prompt engineering, saying what it's all about. And then I've just got some code that is passing the query on to the model, and then the model's retrieving it. So yeah, this is an earlier version of it while it was returning JSON blobs. But yeah, who is Gavin Davis? What can he do? And it comes back. It's quite interesting what skills it's picked for me. PHP, fair enough. Java, Crystal reports. I haven't done Crystal reports in 20 years. So it's not like, I can do Crystal reports, I'm sure. I don't even know if it's still an extant technology though, but it's just picked some random tech. And it's not really like prioritizing the recent skills like AWS or Python or Scala or Terraform. Oh, it does mention Terraform, I guess. And it's chosen to highlight my work on the $1 Million homepage. I guess it's a high profile project that was quite a cool thing in Web 1.0, 1 or 2.0. But yeah, it's is he good at computers? Yes or no? Well, it's kind of said yes. So in your face, this boy's good at computers. It's official. And then I've asked it questions like, what's the capital of France? And it's quite interesting. It says the context provided does not contain information about the capital of France. So in the vector database, trained on Gavin Davis Limited, there's nothing about what's the capital of France in there. Fair. Why should there be? However, it's gone to whatever Mistral's default training set is. So yeah, if it doesn't find information, it can pull it out. But I found that quite encouraging. It was just looking at the context it was given. So it's relatively easy to query any text data through this stuff. You can bang any old front end on there. And I actually took the parts of the wiki from my current engagement with my team's permission, just our team space, and temporarily trained this model on it. well, not train the model, but, created a vector database and created a RAG chatbot for that. And it was actually pretty useful. It was like, what tools should a new starter install? And it was telling you, get Slack installed, get this installed. What's the mission of this team? It gave a pretty decent answer, It had the same problems as the GavinDavisLimited.com RAG, but with more careful vector DB training, it could have legs. And I think that's the thing, is there's probably ways of marking up this data and giving it priority, but maybe that's me with my Elasticsearch hat on, right? Thinking, okay, well, this is this way and this is that way. But yeah, it's got to know that some information is more important than other information. It is semantically aware, but how it knows that, I don't know, whether it's just a function of volume. So that's another learning thing for me, is how these things actually work. That's what I want to look into. So what's next on this channel? Well, the next video I want to make is about reframing ourselves as software pros away from wizards with arcane rituals and, we've got these magic skills and we build castles in the clouds, to something more like a wordsmith, like using the power of language to join people's horizons and join systems' horizons and to think of ourselves more linguistically, which I think is how we operate. Foucault said language represents thought as thought represents itself, and that's actually a profound insight. I'm not I'm not well read in philosophy, but I remember the odd quote when they land hard. And I want to also talk about the emotional fallout of AI occupying a space that was like, yeah, this was my special skill. This was something I was pretty good at, and now like anyone can come along with a couple of tools and do the thing. And they might not have the insight that I've got from years of experience, but how do I cope with that emotionally? How do engineers cope with that emotionally? And I think I've not really heard anyone addressing that. I'm sure somebody has, because people are either telling you to cope or telling you that it's fine or telling you that it's going to take all your jobs, it's going to destroy everything. No one's actually saying that I've come across yet. But how can we emotionally process this, which I think is important. Anyway, we can argue about the extent to which AI will replace us, but I think few would deny that it's only likely to have a greater impact over time. So I'd like to get that video out on Saturday the 19th. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you found it interesting. And remember, these videos, they're not about my main areas of expertise per se, but my areas of growth, right? This is me pushing and stretching. So if you found this interesting, feel free to have a look at GavinDavisLimited.com for more of my gubbins. Thank you very much.